Welcome to episode 131 of Stageworthy. I'm your host, Phil Rickaby. Stageworthy is a podcast about people in Canadian theatre featuring conversations with actors, directors, playwrights, and more. Again, before I get to today's episode, I want to tell you about a little thing I'm putting together. It's called Shakespeare Retranslated. And with Shakespeare Retranslated, I take a play by Shakespeare and run it through the internet's most popular translation site and translate it into another language. Then I take that version and I translate it back to English. And then I get a group of actors to read the retranslated version. But here's the thing. They don't get to see the retranslated version until right before they read it. And nobody knows what language I've translated it into until I announce it right beforehand. I did this last year with Romeo and Juliet, and it was hilarious. This time, the play is Macbeth, and the retranslation will be read on June 24th at 6:30 at the Social Capital Theatre in Toronto. Tickets are on sale now, and you can find them by going to retranslated-macbeth.brownpapertickets.com or by searching Shakespeare Retranslated Macbeth on Facebook. And this is a fundraiser for my upcoming production of my play, The Commandment, at the Halifax Fringe this summer, so I'd really love it if you could come out. If you want to drop me a line, I would love to hear from you. You can find Stageworthy on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at StageworthyPod, and you can find the website at stageworthypodcast.com. If you want to drop me a line, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Phil Rickaby, and my website is philrickaby.com. This week, we're taking a short break from talking about the Toronto Fringe, and instead, my guests are Caleb Yong and Vince Deiulis from Theatre Nidana's Life Assignment, playing at Toronto's Theatre Passe Muraille, June 21st to 24th. Can you tell me about the show?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. So we're doing a show. It's called Life Assignment.
Mm-hmm.
It's going up at the Theatre Passe Muraille Backspace at the end of June.
Mm-hmm.
It is a show that takes place in an alternate world.
Okay.
Okay, so it's kind of an alternate world show. It's a bit of social satire, though, ultimately. I can talk a little bit about the world, because I think that that's an interesting part of the show.
Absolutely.
I guess, the interesting angle for us with this play is that it's a mixture of professional artists, but then the playwright and myself, we come from the lay people.
Okay.
Yeah, so we did a lot of theater when we were younger, and now we're returning to theater.
Okay.
And the show actually picks up on these kind of themes, although, I don't know that anyone else would pick up on that. But.
And what's your role with the show?
So I'm the director.
You're the director?
I'm the director. Yeah.
And we'll get into why you love theater and all that.
Right.
I'm an actor. I'm an actor in the show. Yeah.
What do you guys? Is there anything particular that drew? Like, can you mentioned you were going to talk about the alternate universe? I'd love to hear about the alternate world.
The alternate world.
Yeah.
So the premise of the show is that this is a world in which every couple of years the state, although it's left unclear what power does this, goes into people's lives and changes their identities. So everything that you like, so your job, your name, your relationship, your religion, every aspect of your identity is shuffled up. And so, the show begins in the living room of a house, and we meet a couple, and they're having this really kind of like domestic discussion about gardening and this kind of stuff. The doorbell rings, and it's the life commissioning agent who has come to tell them that they've been reassigned to new lives. Yeah. And then it kind of takes off from there.
Okay. Did you ever see the movie Dark City?
No, I have not.
Okay.
No.
It reminds me also what was that other one? There's the Matt Damon movie, which also reminded me of Dark City. Where in Dark City, every night these beings come and change everybody's life around. Like they'll move you to a different apartment, and you''ll wake up the next day and you are a different person.
Interesting.
People don't that's the experience in that movie. Is
Interesting.
that people don't know that their life has been changed. They just wake up and now
And have
they
to
are
deal.
somebody else.
Right.
So
It's like perpetual amnesia.
Yes.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
this is very different because you're told that it's going to happen.
That's right. That's right.
Which is a difficult thing to deal with. And how many years has it happened? Do you know?
It happens typically every 3 years.
Okay.
Right? And so, what is it? Like the premise of the show is that this couple kind of fell out of the algorithm that finds couples.
Okay.
And so they've been together for 8 years, which in this world is, never happens.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's an extended period of time. And to kind of make matters worse, there's another couple that has been reassigned to their house that night. And the couple that has been reassigned, that we begin with, they don't want to break up.
No.
Right, because there's an issue there. There's a reason why they want to stay.
Sure.
And there's another couple that's coming in, and then comedy, hilarity ensues.
It's a really interesting thought because I could see some people for whom a finite, knowing that your relationship was finite, would be an exciting thing.
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
I'm not really going to get tired of you because in 3 years we're done.
Yeah.
But other people who are like, what? I only get 3 years with this person? Which is another thought.
One of the things that we're really trying to play with is the kind of the erotics or maybe the pornographics, you could say, of identity now, in the way in which, I think a lot of us spend a lot of time fantasizing about living other lives, and we pursue that in all kinds of subtle ways,
It's super easy to do because everybody presents like their fake life.
Yeah.
on, like, Facebook
They're highly
and Instagram.
curated version
It's
of
like
themselves.
like these are the things I want you to see about my amazing life.
Yeah, that's right. That's
know?
exactly right. Yeah. No, it's a great concept. I think it's a great concept. So that's the show. And I'm not sure what else to say about it.
Who do you play in the?
Who do I play, Caleb? I come in. I'm a newly assigned. Would it be? Yeah, newly assigned life commissioning agent. So I come in at the tail end of the show, just when you think things are like leveling out and making sense, and I come in and start like a new shuffle because I end up giving the new life assignment to the life commissioning agent who's been reassigning the people who are there.
Oh shit!
So I come in, and the whole thing's just stirred up even more.
There's a bit of a kind of a false ending in the show. So we think things are about to get resolved.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But then the hero of the show gets reassigned, right? So it's kind of this false ending. It's just like, things are going to be resolved,
like,
and
okay.
then the world interrupts it again and shuffles it, and that introduces.
That's interesting because I think in my mind the people who were life assignment agents, they would be not subject to that, which is interesting.
No, but everyone's subject to that in this world. Yeah, and so it's it's a very simple premise, but it opens up all kinds of uncomfortable truths, I think, or insights into identity, how we work, how we relate to one another. It's an interesting piece.
Vince, what did you think when you first read this?
It's funny because I was just brought in for a reading very early on about, what was it, February of last year. A friend of mine is in the show and she's like, we just need somebody to help come in and do this reading. Do you want to just pop in? And then I went in, and then of course Caleb, he's like, okay, everybody, I know everybody has notes and opinions, but Vince, since this is the first time you read it, what are you thinking? And I because I have like a film background. I went to film school, so I worked in film for a while. So I made the notes. I was like, well, I think that visually this and this and this, but those are more production notes. It's like, I guess the script, but the script it's funny because it feels like it's gonna be like a Norm Foster like play. It's like the setting is a living room, it's a couple, and then so it's like that, but then layered in with all these like higher concepts, which is what I'm all about. Which is what so that all those like higher concepts are what's intriguing, and then layered on something that seems like it's the simple like telling of a life, but it's like a telling of a life, but a life that we're not used to. So I find that that's really interesting.
It's an interesting use of the typical living room set, which, we see a lot of in theater. I have weeks when I'm seeing a lot of theater, and I'm like, if I see another fucking living room set, I'm just walking out. And it's interesting to think that this is like giving you that and then turning it on its head.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
not a little living room drama. It's
Yeah.
like a complete change in what usually happens in the living room.
Yeah, and at the same time, it's like then on the other dime, you want to go see like the high concept, like high art, like the opposite, and then you go and then you don't understand anything because there's no point of relation.
Yeah.
And so that's what I think is really clever about this show is that you have those high concepts, but it's within a realm that you can still understand them.
Yeah.
And so it's not like everybody comes out and we're all in like masks and stuff and dancing and trying to still seriously discuss what we're trying to discuss. We still we build it within a framework that people understand and then layer on top of it all these higher concepts that people will then think about afterwards.
Yeah, one of the images I've had for the show is that the genre twists itself. So, we're playing a lot with the expectation of the spectator. When it opens, ideally, your first thought, if you're someone who goes to the theater a lot, is, oh fuck, another parlor drama. Oh my god. And then but the point is to just keep twisting it. So the moment that you think that you're watching one form, it twists itself out into kind of another form. And for me, that works. I think that's a really interesting theme, not just like a formal technique, but it's a theme about performance and the performance of our identities. We assume roles all throughout our lives, and every time we assume one of those roles, we're acting. We're actors. Vince and I were just I work as a college teacher, and we were just talking about I'm totally underqualified for it. I hope you can edit that part out. But
I don't edit these things. So
no, but
I think you're perfectly qualified.
But that there's a feeling of when you walk in front of a classroom, I have always only ever played the role of teacher. I would like to say that I'm authentic and I'm being myself, etc., etc. But when you walk into any context, there's certain expectations that people have of you, or that you think that people have of you, that make you play to those expectations.
Sure.
And I think that that's this idea of genre.
Yeah.
As the play twists, it's a way to point ourselves to an awareness of the plane of genre, and the way that we think we need to enact those roles.
It's interesting because I think I role played for many years. I played Dungeons and Dragons and all those games.
Yeah, cool.
And one of the things that I think I've learned from that is how to role play in real life. So I feel like a lot of times that's what I do in my day job. I play the role of a guy who works in tech support and understands how all of that works, which I do, but it's that's not where my natural tendency goes.
Yeah,
so,
of course not.
And I think we all take on roles.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is that when we take on one role, we're not necessarily expected to immediately forget about the one before, which it sounds like in this play. When you are given a new role, you're given a new relationship, a new job, a new life, you are expected to just forget that the other one happened. Is that right?
That is right. And so I guess the idea of the play is that people are attracted to that, or people want that, or there's a desire for that.
Okay.
That, it's imagine, I was working with my actors a couple of weeks ago, and they were, it's kind of one of the main couples, and in the show, the couple doesn't want to break up. And when they first read the show, they couldn't understand. They're like, well, why would we accept this? Why don't we just fight back right away? And why don't people take this? And I started to ask them, I said, well, imagine, just take your own lives. And just, have you never fantasized about doing something radically different? For me, one of the things that I fantasize about, I have a friend who's a war journalist, and it's just he goes off to these places and he covers war, and, and I fantasize about that, but I could never do that because I'm married and I got these little kids that I'm concerned about, and it's, and if I were to do that, I would hurt them.
Yeah.
In this play, because everybody's being reassigned, you don't hurt people.
No.
So there's a kind of like the forgetting is, there's something tragic about that because you're losing relationships, but it also means that you are no longer ethically responsible to the relationships that you have.
Yeah.
Or you're only responsible in the present.
Yes.
You know, you're not responsible as you move from identity to identity.
Yeah.
And so I guess there's a point there about, you know, like the relationship between, you know, the freedom to be somebody else and the freedom from your ethical obligations to others.
It's interesting because you can look at, there are certain things, like I had some friends, they moved into a neighborhood. They'd always lived in apartments, and then they got a house in a neighborhood, and they were, the peer pressure that existed in the neighborhood was a thing that never existed when you lived in an apartment. In an apartment building, as long as you don't disturb your neighbors, nobody gives a shit what you do. When you own a house, everybody gives a shit what you do. Like, your lawn isn't cut often enough. What do you do? Your kids, we're gossiping about your kids. We're gossiping about the neighbors' kids. Like, everybody is in each other's business. And it got to the point where, like, this one woman decided that her daughter was, and not that, but that her daughter was old enough to walk to school on her own. Scandal in the neighborhood because children walking to school on their own, oh my God. And then the neighborhood enforced this behavior. Which it sounds like if you were a person who wanted to buck this system, the neighborhood would not allow it. Like society would basically put pressure on you not to do it. That's right.
Although the argument of this world is, you know, you conform for the moment, but there'll be a moment where you'll be free from this role and you'll be shifted to a new role where you'll have to conform to that neighborhood or that situation, but you will be freed from that as well.
I mean, anytime that you're freed, you're immediately put into something else, though. So you're never actually free.
That's
it's
right.
just that
that's right.
Yeah. So it's interesting.
Yeah, you're never free, and I guess that's one of the questions of the play is what is freedom in this world? Yeah. And if you want to get really philosophical about it, the question would be, you know, are we so, you know, do we have such a deep belief in our society that freedom comes from some kind of individual choice or some kind of, you know, that the individual chooses how to act in the world? And, you know, that's how we understand freedom in our society. In this society, freedom is actually the freedom to surrender to the dictates of the world, right? So rather than, you know, pushing back against it and saying, no, I don't believe this, I don't want this, the real freedom is surrendering. You know, making the choice to surrender and then being not only free, and then what you're really free of is you're free from the idea that you have an individuality with an essence that needs to be expressed in a certain way, right? As if the world is saying that, you know, what you're really a prisoner of, you're not a prisoner of the world, you're a prisoner of the idea of a self that needs to do certain things. Just let yourself go, man. Like, play whatever role you're given.
Yeah. I will admit there's a part of me that's like, no! Like, that's like, you know, that's not how we are. So it's like, the myself just sort of like inwardly, I could feel myself rebelling against that. But if I was raised in that society, then that would be a different thing.
You know, listen, one of the things, I'm an old friend of the playwright, and we've been talking about this play for a long time. One of the ways that I describe the show, not him, but I describe the show as a Buddhist dystopia. You know, one of the fascinating concepts in Buddhism is the idea of the non-self, right? So Buddhists will say that the cause of suffering is our attachments to things. The reason why you suffer, the reason why we all suffer is because we desire things, we're attached to things, we expect the world to give us things. And so the way to get over suffering is to let go and to not be attached, to not have desire. And the thing that, you know, many Buddhists say we're the most attached to is the idea of the self. You know, you walk into a room and you're like, everyone here needs to recognize Caleb. Everyone here needs to understand who I am. I can't do this because that's not me. You know, and that causes, you know, and I think there's some truth to it. You know, those kinds of expectations you have about yourself, that essentializing of yourself, actually leads to a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, and so we're playing with that idea, and I call it a Buddhist dystopia because that's kind of one of the premises of the show. If you were to just totally give up on the idea of self and just surrender to conformity and let yourself be Rick today, or and then somebody else another day, or whatever. I think that could actually be freedom in a strange sort of sense.
Vince, I'm curious because you said that you're a film guy.
Yes.
And your background is film.
Yeah.
Were you always a film guy? Like, is this your first theater thing, or
No,
what brings you from film to theater, or vice versa?
Fair. I've always been a theater person. In high school. It was just funny because I didn't want to do anything related to drama, but my mother forced me because I was a very shy child. I grew up with 3 older sisters, so I was just that annoying little brother, and so I was just very shy, except with my family. So she's like, "Oh, you should take drama so that you get out of your shell." Took drama, and then so everything since then is her fault. But I was very I grew up in a small town, and everything we did was theater. There was no real we didn't really understand what the movie industry was, how movies got made. We just thought everything was made in LA, and unless you moved to LA, that's the only way you're going to be in movies.
What was the small town?
Timmins,
okay,
Ontario.
cool.
So I grew up just always loving theater, and then when it came time to go to school, I was looking at, and there's film, you can take film acting programs,
sure.
But I'd always heard that the highest acting form is the theater. So if you want to act in film, that's fine, but your training should still be in theater, because then you're getting the whole experience as to just learning the techniques that go along with film acting. So I went to theater school, and then in theater school was my first opportunity to act in the student films for the film program that was at our school. And I ended up being in, I think, 6 or 7, which was a lot, because most of the people in my class were in 1, maybe. But I ended up with being in 6 or 7, and I was like, okay, film is cool, and film is fun, and being on set was fun. And then that film program was only a year. So I took that same film program that I had acted in theater school right after theater school, and then started. Part of the film program is is an internship program. So we got our start in film, and then through that made connections. And I was like, okay, to make money, maybe I'll work in film and then act in theater when I get the chance, because everybody knows there's not a lot of money in theater. So I'll get my money in film. And then act in theater on the side. And then what happened was, of course, that's not the way it's going to be. I just started working constantly in film, film production, doing whatever. I was locations PA, cleaning garbages and setting up lunchrooms. I was an office PA, and then the last job I did was production secretary. But I mean, all these things. Eventually, we were talking about this today. All these things led to this. This idea of making the art as a whole, as opposed to just seeing myself as one part of it. So that's the one advantage of the film program, and having worked in film up until this point, was knowing that there's a whole process to making a thing, whether it's theater. Because I remember being in theater school and hating the production classes and stage management. I was like, I just want to act. I came here to act. Why are we learning all this crap about the behind the scenes? There are people for that. Why do I need to know what a prompt book is and and I remember my stage management teacher hated me because I would just sit in the back of the class and just sigh the whole time, because I didn't think production was part of what I had to do. So then taking the film program and then working in film, I was like, nope, you definitely have to be a part of the whole to understand your piece in it. And then now I've missed acting in theater that whole time, and so I've started working at getting myself into more theater productions. And again, I find myself in the indie productions because that's where I get to do more than just my part. Sure, I'm able to then take on producer type roles and help promote the show and use what I learned in the film program towards these independent theater productions.
It's interesting. Your feeling in that stage management class is you're not the only person who's ever been we don't need to know this. There's people for that.
That's right.
Which is why there's a lot of stage managers who love what they do, but they kind of hate actors.
That's it. Yeah, I've definitely met them. Yeah.
And it was working in film that helped you get past that.
Exactly. Yeah. It was knowing that even though I was just like putting out garbage cans or coning off a location, it was knowing that, yeah, that seemed so mundane and minimal, but that's how the show still got made.
Yeah.
Like if everybody didn't know where to shoot the show wouldn't get shot, and then you wouldn't know. So it's like, even though in the moment I hated doing it, it was knowing that I was still serving the production as a whole.
Yeah. It's funny because we do insulate the actors. We do it in film too. We insulate the actors from all of that stuff. So people who act in theater, they encounter the stage manager daily. But have you ever seen Slings and Arrows?
Yes.
And they keep sending the stage manager out for coffee and stuff. It's like they think that's what the stage manager's there for.
That's right. Yeah.
And they almost never encounter like the stagehand or anything.
Yeah.
Unless they're like bringing something on. Which is like the worst. But it's like... One of the things that I like about indie theater is that you do get to see more of the working parts, where you don't insulate the actors from that process in the same way that they do in a lot of bigger shows.
Yeah. And I mean, hopefully, if you have a good team, everyone knows the pieces that need to get picked up, because you don't have a person for that.
Sure.
You don't have someone doing posters and doing so then somebody's like, I'm good at graphics, maybe I'll do that. And so it's and it gives people an opportunity to do other skill sets that they already have, and then apply that to the production that they're on, so that they're doing more than acting or just directing or just this or just that, which is nice.
Yeah, nice. Caleb, I'm interested in your story as somebody who left the theater and then came back. So where did you start doing the theater? Why did you leave, and what brought you back?
So I guess I was like a pretty typical theater kid. Parents neglected me. Realized that I could get a lot of attention if they put me into theater camps and that kind of stuff, you know? They're like, Mom, all these people applauded for me.
That makes sense.
You know? She's like, great, they can do it. They can do my work. So I did a lot of, theater stuff, kind of a pretty typical Ontario theater childhood, Sears festivals, what's that, the Blythe Festival, all those kinds of festival scenes, young people's theater. And I did that, and pretty seriously up until my early 20s. At which point I started to do I wasn't sure what the next move was, and I started to do a bunch of volunteer work with professional theater makers, kind of shadowing them, and I don't know, I think I was kind of hard on them at the time, but I saw their struggle, and I saw the amount of work that they had to do that was not the artistic creative work, precisely the stuff that, Vince is talking about, the putting out of the cones and the postering and the money and the grant writing, and it confused me, let's just say. At the same time, I started studying philosophy in university, and I just had a moment, I had actually signed up to audition to go to a bunch of theater schools, and I couldn't do it. Something in me had shifted. From there, I started to study philosophy and religion, and I went on to pursue academics. But it was always, theater was always there in the back of my mind, as satisfying as academics is intellectually, there is a kind of creativity that is lacking. And so, relative to the themes of the show, I think that's why the play spoke to me so much. The play is actually written by a friend from high school who used to write the plays that I used to put on, right? He himself also went on another path. He became an engineer. Yeah. And so this play is a play about identities shifting, the world telling you that you need to change your identity. But there's like a subtext beneath subtext, or an autobiographical subtext for us, which is that the play is also speaking to this question of, do we still have that connection from when we were other people? Yeah. When we were young theater makers. So yeah, that's kind of so why am I drawn back to theater generally? Because theater is a unique kind of collective creative experience. I think that's what's so cool about it. And maybe if you're in it, you don't see that as much, but it's very rare that you will work creatively so intimately, like really intimately, with total strangers, you know, or like relative strangers. It doesn't happen very much.
Well, I mean, theater can be emotionally taxing, at least when you're working on a show, because every show you form a family.
Yeah, that's right.
And that family gets very close.
Yeah.
And everybody, there's a lot of love in that family, usually. I mean, there's always, you know, but there's a lot of love in the family. And then at the end of the show, that family dissolves.
Yeah, sure.
And you may never see those people again or talk to them.
Yeah.
Except when you run into them at something, you're like, oh, hey, we did the thing,
Right.
And it's very difficult.
And because the art form deals with human interaction. I mean, like, that's what the art is. The art is like, let's interact with each other.
Yeah.
And so, you know, like, you know, I've been in bands in this time, you know, like I've played music. But music, it's funny because you can always kind of, I don't want to use the word hide, but there's always the instrument and the technique of the instrument that mediates the relationship. You know, with theater, it's like, you know, we're at rehearsal today and we're, you know, telling people like, I think you need to be more attracted to this person. You know, it's like, I want you to like sit in your attraction for this person that you just met a couple weeks ago. You know, breathe into that. You know,
it's one of those weird things that we do in theater. It's interesting because theater as an art form, people are, you know, I have a friend who jokingly, because he knows it gets a rise out of me, refers to theater as a dead art form or the bastard child of film. But because he knows it'll get a rise out of me.
Yeah.
But there's nothing like sitting in a room where a bunch of actors are performing. Because when you're watching something on film, there's something in between you and the actors. And when you're watching theater, they're right there.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I've never seen... So we see violence on film all the time. And we don't really react to it, except maybe, ooh, look at the CGI on that.
Yeah.
But in theater, a simple act of violence, like a slap, will never fail to get a reaction out of the audience. And that's because the actors are there.
Sure.
It also has the advantage of the fact that it's never going to be that again. So it's like super immediate that way too. So
yeah, theater is, what's the word? It's like the least. I mean, I shouldn't say the least, but of the art forms, you know, it's like it's going to have the hardest time getting on the same page with like capitalism, you know, because you're not making a product that is that remains, you know. And there's something so just like beautiful about that.
Sure.
You know, you can't do it without this kind of, you know, without a love of it, you know, because there really is no point to be doing it otherwise.
yeah. And you have to. I mean, everything you do is kind of a risk, right?
Right.
Because you can't test it.
Yeah.
You know, a film can be tested out the wazoo and be like, they didn't like this, they didn't like that. Let's go back and we'll tweak this, we'll tweak this.
That's right.
You don't get to do that with theater. Yes, you can have a reading of a play, but again, it's never going to be that again.
Yeah, I think, you know, maybe another way to say what I was trying to say is that I think one of the reasons why I like theater so much is because it really requires a faith that something that you felt or are feeling in the experience of the production is being felt by other people. You know, because you can't, with a film, you can stop the frame and say, like, do you see what I see here?
Yeah.
You know, let's talk about this moment again and again and again.
Yeah.
In theater, everyone is in a subjective position. They are subjectively experiencing something. And all you have at the end of the show is your testament to what you saw.
Yeah.
And I think there's something about that that's really frightening and fascinating and magical, right?
Yeah.
It's a kind of religious experience.
Yeah.
You know?
No, it is.
Without getting, you know, religious about it.
No, but
there's that certain moment of like, I think that we all had this experience.
Yeah.
You know, that I felt. And,
and when it works, it certainly is. Like when you see a really awesome play, and you just go with it for a while, and everything is clicking. It just sort of like sweeps you up and takes you along with it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. What is it that? So you and the playwright, and the playwright's name is
David Polera. David.
You and David have been, like, you've been friends since high school. David used to write the plays.
Yeah.
And he went and became an engineer.
That's right.
And then he wrote this play.
Yeah.
And were you always going to direct it, or did he show it to you and you fought for it? Or, like, how did your return to theater as the director come about?
You know what? There was never a question about who was going to do it. There was never a question. We developed the show in conversation. He wrote it. It's very much his show, but it was always developed in conversation.
Okay.
So I had the first go at it. Or, I could have turned it down, I guess. But,
Sure.
But that was never really a choice for me. Yeah, I loved it. I loved the premise. As soon as he told me the premise of the show, I thought it was really, really neat. So yeah.
And how did you, like, when did you know it was done? When did you know it was ready?
I don't know. Was the show ever ready?
Well, at a certain point, it has to be ready enough. Because I know I wrote a play for 8 years before I was like, you know what? I think maybe the only way I think I need to just say I'm doing this, otherwise I can write this forever.
Yeah.
I think so we started to get actors together, and we just started to read it, and you could start it. I think the first reading we did was a couple of years ago, and we knew it wasn't ready then. But there was just something, where I think by the third reading we did, it was working, and there were moments that still needed to be developed, but there was a general feeling of, there's like a moment of excitement. We're like, right, like this is moving. It fits together somehow. And I think that's when we started to think that it's ready. Although I will say, when you're not practicing theater a lot and you're coming in from the outside a little bit, you actually kind of don't know when something's ready yet. It's like,
well, you wouldn't be as precious about it, right?
Well, A, you wouldn't be as precious about it, and B, it's like, I don't know. I remember making steak for the first time, right, on the barbecue, and it's like, I invited all these friends over. We're all going to eat steak. I remember this very clearly. It's like this big deal for me, and I put the steak on the barbecue, and then I suddenly realized, like, I don't know when it's ready. This moment, and this, it's like, geez, I don't know. I guess I could have just read a recipe book or something. There's like a feel.
That's not how we barbecue. We put things on.
But there's a way in which that's the skill of theater practitioners, and that's why we're lucky that we have people like Vince and others in the show that make a lot of theater. Yeah. And so they're much more kind of attuned to these sorts of things.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I've been doing some of the like marketing publicity stuff for the show, as well, media relations stuff for the show, and one of the things that I've noticed when I've been talking about it is that I keep saying we're sharing this with an audience. Like, we're not sure if this, like, this could be another workshop where we see the audience comes back with a bunch of questions after the show, and they're like, I didn't get this. Why was this like this? And so it's just, but theater is that it's sharing it with an audience. So it's not really, in my mind, it's not really a theater piece until you're sharing it with an audience. You can write it to death, but until you're up there and sharing it with an audience, good or bad, the production, theater isn't happening until it's you and the audience. Yeah. So
that's true.
I
mean, the interesting thing is that anytime there's a remount, you can rewrite it. As long as you have that kind of connection. I mean, I know I've heard of published playwrights who they find that there's a production. They're like, which published it? No. I've updated that. Let me send you the new version.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're like, oh, this is not what we read. But, this is great. So you can keep working on it as long as you can. You can keep putting it out there. I know anytime that I've revisited and I've done some stuff that's been produced at home and then toured and then produced at home, and every time you do it, you sit down and you're like, okay, so what worked last time?
Exactly, yeah.
And you have the freedom of doing that because you made it.
Yeah, right.
Whereas it's not like you're not like, so who do we talk to? To make sure that we're not like wrecking stuff. But when you're the creator, you get to have the freedom to do that. Which is great.
Yeah, and the feedback from the audience is what you want, really. Their laughter, their tears, their yawns, and all of that is what, I mean, that at least as a performer, that's why I do it, is to share that space with them. And so the more, the more you can do that, and the more opportunities you can get to expand the story based on your interactions with them, I think the better off the story gets.
I always find workshop productions really interesting, especially when they have a talkback.
Yeah.
And I've seen successful talkbacks and unsuccessful talkbacks.
Yeah.
And the unsuccessful talkbacks are the ones that just go, so what did you think?
Yeah.
Because when you say that to the audience, they'll tell you how they would have done it.
Of course.
But that's all you need to know.
Yeah. Right.
Most of what you needed to know, if you were watching the audience, you saw when they were like looking at the ceiling or shifting or when did they go to look at the program and you're like, okay, these are moments that we need to work on.
Yeah, right.
And the questions are like, you need to know what your questions are. But I've been at a bunch where it's just like, what did you think? And then you end up with somebody telling you how they would have written it or whatever. You know?
Right.
But audiences tell you what they need. Or where they're lost. They won't often come out and say it. But they will tell you. Have you guys have done, like, you guys have read it with a bunch of actors. Is this the first time an audience is seeing it, or have you done like readings in front of an audience?
No, this will be the first time. Yeah, this will be the first time an audience has seen it. So we're very excited to see what happens. You know? I mean, I've been sitting in this. It's a bit of an odd play, you know. So the premise is odd, but then the play itself gets odd. You know, strange things happen in it, and for me, it's totally clear. You know, like it's just like, of course, this guy, you know, he's going and doing this and this and this and this. But you know, we've had some people come in to sit in on the show. Some of the designers, for instance, and you know, they kind of came in and they had read it, but when they were listening to it, there were moments where they were confused. You know, and obviously we've had to kind of clean those up a little bit. But I have no idea, you know, if somebody comes in at this moment, when you're so familiar with the story, will they be able to make out what is happening?
That's actually, you know, I think it's a common problem with making theater, is because, you know, you have those moments at the beginning and you're like, oh, this joke is so funny.
Right.
It's killing everybody. Yeah. And then like 2 weeks in and nobody's laughing, you're like, is it actually funny?
Yeah.
Like, is it
self-conscious? Yeah.
Do we need to change it? Is it not funny? And you just sort of have to be like, no, remember when it was funny?
Yeah.
Remember it was funny?
It was.
You know, we just have to trust that it was funny. You have to trust it. That your initial reaction is the one that the audience will have, and you're not having because you've seen it every day for 2 weeks.
Yeah. Right. You know? But it's really hard. It's hard to have fresh eyes.
Oh, sure.
When you're looking at something.
Yeah.
And you know, and I think that is such a skill to be able to just watch something for the first time that you've already seen or that you've already, you know, been immersed in for so long.
That's a really difficult one. And I don't actually know any directors who are really good at it.
That's a really hard thing to do.
Because, you know, you're on the journey with the actors, you know, and everybody's like, and I think the smart directors that I've worked with, when people are going, is it still funny? They're like, they're the ones who were like, guys, remember? It was funny.
Yeah.
Do you remember our initial reaction when it was funny? It's going to be funny.
Yeah.
You know? And they just have to be able to to trust that initial instincts and to think back over all of the things that they've been through. What are you, aside from whether or not people like it, what are you both excited for in presenting it to an audience? Or worried about? Or...
You know, I'm the most excited for it making people think. You know, for me, theater is not just the experience of watching a play. It's the moment afterwards where you're, you know, sitting and eating with your partner or walking back to your car or whatever. And you're somehow in a different world for a moment.
Yeah.
You know, for me, that's really powerful. And I think that that's the point of this play. This play is not just to move people relative to a story, but it's to give them just a little bit of perspective on their own life. Yeah. You know? I don't know. Maybe that's really pretentious of me to claim to have knowledge about people's lives or something like that. But, you know, but that's the thing I'm the most excited about, is reaching somebody.
I enjoy a show that when I leave the show, we're talking about it.
Right.
Like if I leave a show and there have been these shows, well that was nice, and then we go and we never talk of it again because it was nice.
Yeah.
Just nice.
Yeah.
And then there are other shows where you see them and you're like, I can't get the show out of my head. I need to keep talking about this show, this moment, this whatever. I just keep talking about it. And those are plays that are the ones that I love watching. Because I get to, when there are people outside the theater still talking about the show, you know that there's something going on there.
Right.
And it's rare because usually we're very nice.
Yeah, it's true. It's true, of course, of course.
Yeah, I mean, we're Canadians, we're nice. And our theater
nice.
tends to be nice. And then,
Yeah.
we don't, and because of that, people don't talk about it after the show so much. But when it does, there's like a real fire.
I think with this show too, because it's an alternate world, for me, the moment is, when the audience sees themselves in it. When you set up a world that's not the world that we're in, the first instinct is to not identify with it.
Yeah.
But the moment I'm the most excited is the moment people are like, "Oh, wait a second."
Well, if you set it up as the world that we know, and then you twist it, it's too late. We're invested. If you go away from the beginning, people are like, I don't know what's going on here. But
That's true.
if you're like, here's the living, like you are, here's the living room, here's the little domestic argument about gardening, and now it's not what you thought.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
What are you excited for?
It's along the same lines. I was gonna say I'm most excited to finally be able to talk to people outside of the production about the production, because you can have these exhausting conversations with Caleb about the production. I remember that one lunch that we went to, and we're like, can we just not talk about the production? Let's just talk about anything else in our lives but the production. And it's that same with anytime you're in a show. You have this. I'm talking about. I mean, it's the same. It's like work, right? Like you work. You have coworkers. You always talk about work, and then you never talk about like their lives. And so afterwards, I'm excited for having people I know or not know see the show and then talk about the show. Be like, okay, so now did you get that part? I was vaguely trying to tell you, explain to you before the show, and then did you get it now? And what did you what did you think about this specific thing? Because even I'm kind of still confused about that. And then they explain it to you in a way that no one on the production team had ever thought about, and you're like, yes, okay, now that makes sense to me. Let's go back and redo the show, because now I understand exactly what that point is.
I love when that happens. I love when an audience, when we don't spell out everything for the audience and they draw their own conclusions and then they tell you what they thought the show was about, you're like, well, shit.
Yeah.
You're right, and I'm wrong.
Yeah. Or you go with it and you claim it. You're like, that's exactly what we were intending. That's you got it. Nailed it. Right.
I did a show that was it was a play in the style of a silent film, and so there's no words except for what we show them, and you can't do any backstory because they never know what the backstory is. And then people would, because you can't talk about like, here's what happened before this scene.
Yeah.
So they only know what they see. And then to hear people describe what the show was about, and it was always not what we thought it was. And we just were like, at first we were like, no, you got it wrong. And then after a couple of weeks, we were like, no. If that,
tell me more.
absolutely. Tell me what you saw.
Yeah.
Because now it's yours.
Yeah.
Which is kind of an exciting thing to do.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the show opens on
June 21st.
June 21st.
Thursday, 7:30.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's coming up.
It's coming up. It's the 21st today, so it's like
a month away.
Yeah,
a
month away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't realized that. Thanks for pointing that out.
1 month
Well,
away.
now it's
I thought when you started rehearsal, you were like, guys, we have 4 weeks, and I was like, oh yeah, it is. That's when I realized that it was a month away.
Right.
Yeah. Not that, my friend.
4 weeks different than 1 month.
Yeah, 4 weeks sounds way longer than 1 month.
4 weeks sounds that's sort of
See, but to me, it sounded shorter. I was like, four, that's it. But then I thought about it, and I'm like, it's a month away. It's
a month away.
21st today.
Yeah.
And that's at, sorry, was that the
Theater Pastoral
Backspace?
Backspace. Yeah.
That is such a
little
intimate space.
Oh, I love it.
Like,
yeah.
There's no escaping in that space, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
And I love the people complain about the seating. They're like, oh, you're not gonna sit on like the bench, whatever kind of seating that is. And I was like, no, but like you're literally on the edge of your seat the whole show, you know, because it's such a weird seat that there's no kind of where you go to theaters with the big cushy seats and you kind of like relax into it like a lazy boy, and you're not really. But I feel like the fact that they are the way they are, it makes you engage even more. Maybe
you have to.
Maybe that's just me, but that's what I love about that space.
You kind of have to. I mean, there's something to be said against the really comfortable seat in the theater. I worked at a theater that had comfortable seats, and you'd be looking out at the audience. Yeah. Because as an usher, and you see the occasional, the head falls forward. You're like, seats are too comfortable here.
Yeah. When the temperature's perfect, you know, you walk into a theater, it's nicely air conditioned, and then you walk into like a theater that has no air conditioning ever, and you sweat the whole show. But you're like, when's the show gonna be over? But at the same time, you're not even realizing that you're sweating all over everything.
But the problem is with those, like if it's too hot, I'm gonna fall asleep.
That's
really? The problem. If it's too hot, that's when I'm gonna be like, just sort of like slowly falling asleep.
Okay.
So everybody's different, though.
Fair. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Well, is there a web presence for the show? Is there Twitter? Is there?
Yes, the Twitter is @Nidana. Theater. Yeah, we didn't talk about the theater company. Anyway,
talk about the theater company.
Nidana is the Twitter. We have an Instagram. I think it's @TheaterNidana. And then our website is theaternidana.com. And then we also have Facebook. You can just look up Theater Nidana. We're so connected. I mean, I'm mostly in charge of it with one of our other producers, John. But it's so I kind of integrate them all. So if you find one, you'll quickly be able to find the others. So if you're a Twitter guy, like go T Nidana. But Theater Nidana, look that up, and you'll be able to find us.
And are you guys on the internet yourselves? Do you have like the Twitters and the Instagrams?
Yeah, I'm on it to only to understand how to use it for productions. But I'm definitely So I think my stuff's just @Vince Deiulis, my first and last name, and I don't think you have any web presence at all. So
I think this is my this is the
show is your identity.
This podcast is my introduction.
Introduction to the world of digital entertainment.
I am now digitized.
Now you're gonna have to. Now it's required. You'll have to go home and sign up.
You're gonna have to. I'll open you a Twitter.
All the things.
Right.
All the things.
That's right.
This has been a lot of fun, you guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
This has been a Homebody Productions production.